Have you been seizing opportunities to make your money work for you? Or have you been letting potential profits slip through your hands like sand in the hourglass? Listen up, because this lesson is crucial. If you're just coasting through life without taking control of your finances, you're never going to achieve true wealth and abundance. The Bible has plenty of wisdom when it comes to managing money wisely. One powerful principle is found in Proverbs chapter 21, verse 20. The wise have wealth and luxury, but fools spend whatever they get. Are you listening? It's not enough to just make money. You need to be intentional about how you spend and save it. Living paycheck to paycheck is a surefire way to stay broke. And you know what else? Proverbs chapter 13, verse 11 says, "Wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase it." Hear this loud and clear. Get-rich-quick schemes are traps. Building true wealth takes patience, discipline, and strategic long-term planning. It's a marathon, not a sprint. One of the biggest threats to your financial success is lifestyle creep. As your income increases, so do your expenses as you indulge in more luxuries and luxurious living. The Bible warns against this in 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 9. But those who desire to be rich fall into temptation, into a snare, into many senseless and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. Don't just hear this, understand this. Wealth is not a goal unto itself. It's a means to an end, a tool to be stewarded wisely. As Jesus said in Matthew chapter 6, verse 24, "You cannot serve both God and money." Your finances should be in service of higher callings like generosity, provision for your family, and supporting worthy causes. But here's the thing. Saving and investing aren't just pragmatic strategies, they're spiritual disciplines. Delaying gratification, resisting impulsive spending, and sacrificing short-term wants for long-term goals all build godly character qualities like self-control, contentment, and faith. Are you listening to this? Good, because it's important. The principle of working hard and providing for yourself and your family is deeply biblical, as seen in verses like 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 8. If anyone does not provide for his own, and especially for those of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. Listen closely now. One of the most powerful ways to build wealth is through the miracle of compound interest. It's like a multiplying seed that grows exponentially over time. As the parable of the talents in Matthew chapter 25 teaches, we're called to invest what we've been given and generate a return. But don't think building wealth is just about selfishly hoarding resources. Quite the opposite. Generous giving should be a top priority. As Proverbs chapter 11 verse 24 says, "One gives freely, yet grows all the richer. Another withholds what he should give and only suffers want." When you embrace a spirit of generosity, you open the floodgates of heaven's abundance. The greatest scriptural key to achieving financial freedom? It's cultivating an eternal perspective. As Jesus said in Matthew chapter 6, verses 19 to 21, "Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven." When your heart is set on things above, earthly wealth is simply a tool in service of higher purposes. Every step outlined is needed to reshape your mindset from one of scarcity to abundance, from short-term thinking to long-term planning. It's not enough to just want financial prosperity. You need a comprehensive strategy rooted in biblical truth. Let's take a deeper look at each of these principles and how to apply them in your daily life. Proverbs chapter 21 verse 20 teaches the wisdom of living below your means and investing the surplus for future growth. In the modern world, this looks like creating a monthly budget, building an emergency fund of 3 to 6 months' expenses, and consistently contributing to retirement accounts and other investment vehicles. The warning in Proverbs chapter 13 verse 11 against getting wealthy through get-rich-quick schemes is just as relevant today as it was in ancient times. Think multi-level marketing scams, crypto games, and other flashes in the pan that inevitably fizzle out, leaving participants broke. The patient path of dollar-cost averaging into sensible investments like index funds is far wiser. And 1 Timothy chapter 6 verse 9 wasn't kidding about the perils of unbridled materialism and consumerism. Study after study shows that increased income doesn't equate to increased life satisfaction beyond a basic level of providing for essentials. The happiest people are those who live well below their means, embrace simplicity, and invest in experiences over stuff. As Jesus taught so powerfully, our priorities and where we store up our treasures are of utmost importance. Are you pinning all your hopes and identities on accumulating worldly wealth and possessions? Or are you keeping an eternal perspective, using earthly riches as a means to higher kingdom purposes like caring for the poor and spreading the gospel? One philosophical concept that pairs beautifully with these biblical money principles is the ancient Stoic practice of differentiating between what's within our control and what isn't. We can't control the turbulence of markets, global events impacting the economy, or the luck of circumstances into which we're born. But we can control our reactions, our habits, our diligence and perseverance in areas like earning, spending, saving, and giving. And you know what? Being a faithful steward of our finances is an intrinsically spiritual endeavor that shapes and sanctifies our character daily. Passing up impulsive purchases develops discipline. Saving diligently rather than spending extravagantly cultivates contentment and restrains greed. Giving generously expands our hearts and loosens our grip on material things. Let's explore this concept more through a parable. A merchant had 2 apprentices to whom he entrusted inventory with equal value at the market start. The first apprentice fretted about factors outside his control: market fluctuations, the weather's impact on crop yields and shipping routes, competitor pricing, and so on. Paralyzed by anxiety, he hoarded his inventory, afraid of any perceived risk. The second apprentice, in contrast, focused solely on diligently working his stall, negotiating fair prices, delighting customers, and continually reinvesting profits into acquiring more inventory. At season's end, the second apprentice multiplied his master's investment manifold, while the first had negligible returns. The takeaway: obsessing over what we can't control, global economies, job markets, political upheaval, distracts and immobilizes. While we must broadly understand larger forces at play, our focus should remain steadfastly on diligently working and optimizing the few things we can control: our skills and knowledge, saving habits, spending patterns, work ethic, relationships, and so on. As the Stoic philosopher Epictetus wrote, "The essence of philosophy is that we should so attend to what we ought to attend that we ensure we make the best use of whatever is given to us and remains within our control." Speaking of things within our control, one habit the wealthy embrace is delayed gratification, passing up smaller, frivolous purchases today to save towards bigger, more meaningful goals and investments. This harkens back to the parable of the ant and grasshopper. The ant diligently prepares for winter, while the grasshopper idles and consumes its daily allotment without considering the future. Too many live paycheck to paycheck like grasshoppers. The wealthy live like ants, making short-term sacrifices for long-term payoffs. Here's a story illustrating the power of making diligent small investments over time. In ancient Greece, a poor man approached the philosopher Socrates, asking for enough funds to start a business and escape poverty. Rather than a handout, Socrates pointed out the man's worn shoes and instructed him to invest in a fresh, quality pair of shoes to wear while seeking work opportunities around the city. When the man objected that he couldn't spare the few coins for new shoes, Socrates replied, "With shoes like that, you'll never get very far." A small investment maintained over time yields significant returns. Every step in this lesson, from embracing an eternal perspective to delaying gratification to making diligent small investments consistently, ties back to developing the biblical characteristic of self-control. As Paul wrote in Galatians chapter 5, verses 22 to 23, self-control is a fruit of the Spirit. And we're told in 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7 that God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power, love, and self-control. When we submit our finances and material desires to God's wisdom and priorities, we experience freedom from the tyranny of impulsive consumption habits. Are you still with me? Good, because we're about to explore one of the most misunderstood and neglected biblical financial principles, that of the Sabbath year of debt release found in Deuteronomy chapter 15. Here's the core idea. Every 7 years, all outstanding personal debts were to be cancelled. This prevented the poor from becoming permanently entrenched in debt servitude. More importantly for our purposes, it provided a regular reset towards financial freedom unencumbered by past obligations. Now, whether or not you embrace a literal debt jubilee every 7 years, an increasingly common practice in some circles, the principle of periodically hitting the reset button and wiping the slate clean from burdens of debt is one that modern consumers should embrace. How many are trapped endlessly paying minimum credit card payments, never making headway towards zero balances? How many have languished in student loan or other debt for decades, wealth building permanently deferred? The reset button of bankruptcy exists for this reason. Of course, the best application of the Sabbath year is preventing debt in the first place through disciplined spending and modest living within your means. As billionaire money manager John Bogle said, "The highest principle of investing is to invest for the long term, which means to keep costs to a bare minimum. The simplest way to do this is through a well-diversified portfolio of index funds." Don't just hear this part. Understand that wealth creation is an intergenerational endeavor, not something to be accomplished by a single person within their lifetime. The financial habits and principles you establish today will reverberate through future generations. An ancient Jewish proverb says, "Who is rich? Those who rejoice in their portion." In other words, true wealth is the ability to live contentedly within your means and leave an inheritance, both material and spiritual, for your descendants. And you know what else? Contentment is the antidote to greed, envy, and covetousness, the toxic financial vices that rob us of joy. As the Apostle Paul instructs in Philippians chapter 4, verses 11 to 13, "I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need. I can do all things through him who strengthens me." Listen, here's the harsh reality bluntly stated. Many of you watching have dysfunctional relationships with money rooted in childhood scarcity, generational poverty, lack of financial education, or other traumas. You've been in a mindset of lack and fear for so long, it's crippled your ability to create abundance. But good news, your mind, like a fallen house, can be renovated and restored according to divine wisdom. The renovation process starts now. It starts with embracing the biblical promise of abundance for those who follow God's principles. As Psalm chapter 112 verses 1 to 3 states, "Blessed is the man who fears the Lord, who greatly delights in his commandments. Wealth and riches are in his house, and his righteousness endures forever." Think about that. You have a covenant right to wealth as a blessing for righteous living. Not a shabby prosperity gospel, but legitimate financial flourishing as you walk in obedience. The first renovation needed is overhauling your limiting beliefs around money and success. You don't have a poverty spirit unless you reinforce those thoughts daily. You aren't fated by your family history. As Galatians chapter 3 verses 13 to 14 promises, Christ redeemed us from the curse of the law by becoming a curse for us. in order that in Christ Jesus the blessing of Abraham would come to the Gentiles, so that we could receive the promise of the Spirit by faith. You can break generational curses by faith. Next on the renovation docket is installing new mental programming around patience, diligence, and embracing the process rather than chasing overnight riches. Recall Proverbs chapter 13, verse 11. Wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase it. This goes against our cultural instant gratification, but reflects the created order. Seeds take time to germinate and bear fruit. Just as Rome wasn't built in a day, your financial empire must be constructed diligently over years and decades. An ancient Greek myth recounts two newlyweds gifted with a piece of rope by a goddess with powers to fulfill their deepest desires. Frustrated with poverty, the husband keeps diligently unraveling the rope, revealing valuables like pots of gold. But his wife, impatient for lavish riches, hastily yanks at the rope, unraveling it prematurely, and they're left with nothing. Take the slow, steady path. It's the only road to true, enduring wealth. To maintain motivation for the long journey, regularly visualize your destination. Like the Hebrews in the wilderness being told to look towards the promised land, always keep your envisioned future of abundance in your sights. However, don't just fantasize about luxury goods and status symbols. Define your driving motivation, your personal promised land. Whether that's generational wealth for future descendants, funding kingdom endeavors, or achieving financial independence to devote time to ministry or other callings. The final renovation is realigning your financial habits and systems according to the wisdom we've covered. If you're married, get on the same page with your spouse through regular money meetings. Create a realistic monthly budget with clear targets for spending, saving, investing, and giving. Automate contributions into investment and retirement accounts. Aggressively eliminate consumer debt. Build passive income streams from side hustles and income-generating assets like rental properties. And make tithing and other generous giving your top financial priority, not an afterthought. It's time to wake up and recognize the necessity of maintaining this motivated, disciplined mindset. To close, I'll leave you with a powerful quote summing up the scriptural keys we've uncovered. Lazy hands make for poverty, but diligent hands bring wealth. He who gathers crops in summer is a prudent son, but he who sleeps during harvest is a disgraceful son. Proverbs chapter 10, verses 4 to 5. Which son will you choose to be? The disgraceful sluggard sleeping through life's harvest seasons, or the wise, prudent child diligently reaping and storing up treasures in heaven through a life of faithful stewardship? That decision is yours. I've laid out the battle plan for sanctifying your spending and achieving financial freedom through biblical principles. Now, it's up to you to march forth and claim the abundant life that is your spiritual inheritance as a child of the Most High God. Check out the other videos on this channel for more wisdom on cultivating an abundant mindset, spiritual disciplines, side hustles, investment strategies, debt freedom, and more. And leave a comment sharing your biggest takeaways or struggles when it comes to managing money according to scriptural principles. I read every comment, and this dialogue helps me shape future content to best serve you on your journey towards true wealth.